What do world-famous winemakers have in common with Mickey Mouse, national parks, and the Pacific coastline? They all call California home. If you're planning a vacation to California but you don't know where to start, I totally get it. California is a huge state. It covers more than 160,000 square miles and includes mountains, valleys, forests, deserts, and miles of coastline. Big cities and lots of cozy little towns. It's one place where you can find just about anything you're looking for, from farmland to famous people, which makes it really tough to figure out if you're planning a vacation to California. Another factor, it's no secret that California is not the cheapest state to visit. In this video, I'll give you my top tips for planning a California vacation, and if budget is a concern, I've got a few budget hacks for visiting the Golden State as well. Quickly though, please hit subscribe to keep the travel tips and hacks coming. So let's start with tip number one, rent a car. You'll be able to see so much more with wheels. In California, you can find beautiful beaches within driving distance from deserts and mountains. A word of warning though, you've probably heard about LA traffic. It is not a joke. Traffic's a major issue in all of the big cities. Los Angeles, San Diego, San Francisco, Sacramento, and any of the popular tourist destinations like Lake Tahoe and Yosemite National Park. So make sure you plan for traffic and either avoid peak times or just allow for some extra time. Keep in mind that the fastest route might not be the most scenic route. So think about whether you just want to get from one place to the next really quickly, or whether you want to drive the California coastline or the beautiful back roads and get a more scenic experience. So I've got two budget tips for you here if you're planning on renting a car. First of all, check out Discover Cars. That's who I use for the best prices at all the major rental companies. There's a link in the show notes below. And secondly, expect to pay a lot for gas, especially if it's summertime. My hack here, a hybrid or electric vehicle isn't a bad idea if you're open to it. California has more charging stations than anywhere else in the country by far. There are apps that'll show you where they're at, so where those charging stations are at, so it's really easy to incorporate into your travels. I've done a 9-hour drive from Northern to Southern California with an electric vehicle, and it saved me a ton of money. So now let's talk about when to go. Pre-planning is so important. Winging it in California can lead to a lot of wasted time just trying to get around. So plan your route in advance to make the most of your time. If you have options for when you travel, I would suggest going for the shoulder seasons or midweek. A lot of families travel to California, especially during summer break and holidays. So when kids are back in school, you're likely to find it easier to get around and, in general, less crowded. Something else to keep in mind, it's a sad reality in California, but wildfires have ruined many vacations, even shutting down entire towns. I lived in South Lake Tahoe when the Caldor fire caused the whole city to evacuate right during the peak summer travel time. Tourists suddenly found themselves in evacuation shelters, which is not where you want to spend your vacation. While it's impossible to predict where a wildfire might hit, keep in mind that you may want to just pack masks and make a backup plan if you're traveling to California anytime during the hot summer months. If there's a big wildfire where you're going, even if you're still able to stay there, it can really ruin the air quality, making it super uncomfortable even to be outside on the beach or on the trails. In a lot of places, they'll shut down the trails and outdoor places just out of health concerns. So now let's talk about where to go. In California, you have so many great options. Everyone thinks of the big cities like San Francisco, Los Angeles, San Diego, but there are some amazing places to visit that are just outside of these big cities, where you may be able to save some money and at the same time plan day trips into the city. As for the different regions, a lot of people think of California as two different states, Northern and Southern California. If you were to cut the state in half, think about palm trees and deserts in the south, with generally warmer, drier weather year-round. And in Northern California, you're more likely to get more rain and snow in some times of the year, and it has more forest land and redwoods, which are the world's tallest trees. We have parks and beautiful areas around the redwoods. But in reality, you can find a little bit of everything in both parts of the state. We can't forget Central California, which can be really hot in the summer. And while tourists don't typically plan a vacation around the Central Valley, it is considered the breadbasket of the nation because it's one of the most productive agricultural regions in the world. So it's really an important part of California. And if you're driving from Northern to Southern California, you're likely to have to go through that area. There's also the central coast of California, which includes the world-famous golf course Pebble Beach, as well as some great coastal towns like Monterey, Carmel by the Sea, Santa Cruz, and Capitola. Lots of great places to see. So let's break it down. If you're thinking of Northern California, the highlights that tourists usually want to visit include San Francisco, the Napa Valley wine country, and for outdoor lovers, there's Lake Tahoe and Yosemite National Park, as well as a ton of more remote, great hiking and outdoor areas that stretch from San Francisco all the way north to the Oregon border. There are so many more great places to visit in California that are off the beaten path, and those are the places that are really beautiful, they'll be less touristy, and they won't cost as much money. It's impossible to name them all, really. A lot of people come to California, of course, for the beaches. Just know that they're going to be a little bit colder in Northern California, but you'll find some of the most beautiful and dramatic coastlines here. The famous Napa Valley wine country is about an hour away from San Francisco and about equal distance to Sacramento, which is the state capital. Here you'll find really well-known wineries and beautiful places to visit. But instead of staying in Napa, if you're visiting the wine country, there are some great smaller towns nearby that may be more affordable, but still have quick and easy access to wineries, and likely they have wineries right there in those little towns as well. Also, there are a ton of fantastic wine regions outside of Napa Valley that a lot of people don't even know about. I could do a whole episode just on wine regions in California. So for outdoor adventures, you've got the gorgeous Lake Tahoe, which has snow in the winter, hiking, and lake fun in the summertime. This is one of those places that if you're looking to beat the crowds, go in the spring or in the fall and go midweek for the best access and the most peaceful experience. Yosemite National Park is one of my favorite places in the state, but it gets really crowded in the summer as well. Reservations are required, so make sure you go online to the National Park Service's website when you're doing your planning. Also, there's really limited lodging in the park itself, but there are some great places like Tenaya Lodge and Cedar Lodge that are just outside of the park gates, so make sure and check that out. Moving on to Southern California now, where we'll start with the cities. Los Angeles, of course, takes the cake, being home to Hollywood and Disneyland. If you want an action-packed vacation that may cause a bit of sensory overload, this is definitely your area. Just a little bit south of LA, San Diego is another great city in California. It's known for its year-round perfect weather, as well as beautiful beaches, lots of cool history, a famous zoo, and it's just 20 minutes from the Mexico border. Speaking of beaches, pretty much everywhere in Southern California, the beaches are built for sunbathing. And there's a huge variety, from our cozy little San Diego beach to more eclectic beaches like Venice, Santa Monica, or Ocean Beach that you'll often see on TV shows and movies. If you get outside of the cities, you're more likely to find beaches that aren't quite as crowded and might also be a little bit cleaner. And like Northern California, there are some great wine regions. There's also another national park, Joshua Tree National Park. It's near Palm Springs, which you may have heard of because Palm Springs was made famous as a celebrity hotspot dating back to the 1930s, and people still love to go there. Once again, there's so much more to see in California, including the famous Hearst Castle in San Simeon, beautiful Big Sur, there's Mammoth and Big Bear for snowy mountain lovers that are in Southern California. I could really go on and on and on. So you may want to create an A list and a B list of places that you'd like to see, and then come back to California to tackle your B list another time, because there's so much in this state that you really need to be here for a whole month just to cover it all. Feel free to drop me a line in the comments if you have any specific questions, or if you're curious about some of those smaller towns or off the beaten path areas, because in my opinion, those are some of the best places to see. Finally, I promised you some of my favorite hacks for visiting California on a budget. I've given you a couple of them already, including staying just outside of the major tourist regions and considering an electric vehicle. My favorite lodging hack that can literally save you thousands of dollars is to use a home swap site like Home Exchange. Home Exchange lists nearly 5,000 homes just in California. If you don't know anything about how to home swap, check out my video, How to Home Exchange. But in short, it doesn't have to be a simultaneous exchange, and in fact, they don't even have to come to your house if you use the point system. The other way you can save if you home swap is by using the resources that come with a home. We like to cook or barbecue more often when we exchange, rather than eating out at restaurants for every single meal, which of course saves a ton of money. There's often also access to washers and dryers, or things like a pool or bicycles, which can be great activities that will also save you money. However you decide to visit, California is great, and it's a really diverse state. I love it here. There's always so much to do and see. Don't hesitate to drop me a comment below if you have any questions at all. But for now, I'll say ciao, my friends. See you next time.